That's where I got the nickname Merriweather, because my hiking buddy, it drove him nuts, because whenever we were out, I was constantly taking pictures of plants and identifying plants, and had this stack of books with me. And he's like, come on, Merriweather, we still got 8 miles to go today.
It's the Health in the Real World podcast. It's time to start the show with Chris Janke as your host. Here to give you everything that you need when it comes to fitness strategies. We keep it simple and easy. It's your roadmap to get healthy. You don't need equipment and you don't need a gym. Just the right strategies to get you fit and trim.
Hello and welcome to Health in the Real World podcast. We're here today with Mark Merriweather, Vorderbruggen, PhD. I got it. That's an awesome name. I love it. Merriweather, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. Every preacher loves a new pulpit. So
Absolutely.
You've invited me into your church here.
I know the feeling. I love talking about what I do, and you're doing some awesome stuff. We spoke a few weeks ago about what you're doing. Why don't you just give like a quick intro for anybody who doesn't know who you are?
All right. I am a medicinal chemist that walked into a cave and never came out again. Basically, my career has taken me from learning about medicine with a focus on natural products to really coming to realize that a lot of modern health issues are due to our prehistoric bodies trying to make do in the modern world. And all these things that have made our lives more convenient are working against us.
Awesome. So you know what that reminds me, and I was thinking about this the last time we talked as well. One of my first jobs after college was I was an SAT tutor. So I would help kids, high school kids study for the SAT, for the English part. And one of the questions for the essay was, do things that make our lives easier necessarily make them better? And it was funny because immediately my answer was no, of course not. Just because it's easier does not mean that our lives are better. But it was kind of surprising how many high school kids said that, of course, yeah, if our life is easier, of course it's better. But, like you say, you kind of have to take the good with the bad, right? The convenience. So what are some examples, in your opinion, of things that have made our lives significantly easier, but maybe not necessarily better for our bodies?
Okay, so just looking behind you, the sidewalk and the road, the flat surfaces. I like to tell people the world is flat, not from a big, weird, thing, but
Right.
We've flattened out our earth because it's more convenient. It's easier to walk. It's safer to walk on a flat surface. We can get things faster. We can do things more quickly. But what we lost is some really interesting things. And this goes back to some studies by the Japanese. If you know anything about the Japanese demographics of their nation, they have a lot of old people and not a lot of young people. So one of the things they've been studying for quite a while now is how can we keep our elderly population as healthy as long as possible? One of the things they found is having them walk on an uneven ground. There's several benefits that come from that, from walking on uneven ground, which is what we evolved to do. First is mentally. As you're walking on uneven ground, your brain is constantly analyzing the surface and shifting your weight and just interacting with the environment and manipulating your body to be in that environment the way we evolved. It is giving all this input into the brain. The brain is analyzing it, which it's like working a muscle. The more you work the muscle, the stronger it gets, or the longer it stays strong. So just walking on uneven ground and the mental energy it took helps increase the overall mental acuity and staves off things like dementia and Alzheimer's.
Now, would you say that's something as simple as just going to a park and taking off your shoes and walking in the grass? Or do you think it needs to be more than that? Or
So best case or the easiest thing to do is, just get on the grass, take off the shoes. I personally prefer to take the shoes off for the whole grounding effect.
Yeah.
But the walking, the main thing is you want slippery and roots and loose gravel and stuff that's difficult to walk on. And because along with the mental of, measuring things and studying stuff and analyzing, another thing it's doing is it is working on your sense of balance. And a benefit from having an improved sense of balance is, especially later in life, they found that you are less likely to fall and break a hip. If you're over 70 years old, and you fall and break a hip, that's pretty much a death sentence. A very large percentage of them don't last a year after that because the effects overall on their lifestyle is so crippling that they pretty much just give up the will to live.
Right. Right.
So, well, you look like you had a question.
No,
Otherwise, I
yeah.
got one more benefit of just walking on even ground.
Go for it. Go for it. Finish it up.
Okay, the brain adjusting your body and all this, it has been shown that the core muscles get a much better workout, so you have a better core muscle strength. Now, you can sit there and plank and do all that. I find it much nicer for going out, walk on on not a path, and just getting the core muscle workout that way. Because again, there's a direct correlation between core muscle strength and health and overall body health.
Absolutely.
So,
And the core muscles will engage anytime there is that lack of stability. It will brace your rib cage, your spine. And yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be planks, crunches. Those can be great. But yeah, just walking on uneven ground. It's interesting because we talked about this before. I was having some internet issues, and so I'm here poaching Starbucks internet. But I think it's perfect. It's like a perfect demonstration, and you have your Zoom background with like basically 10,000 years ago paleo times, and I'm all paved with cars driving by, and it's a good little juxtaposition here.
There we go.
So this is interesting. I used to do grounding and like barefoot workouts at the parks very frequently, probably 2 to 3 days a week. It's been a while since I've really done it, but I did find that I felt more comfortable in my body. I felt, like I would do the grounding on the grass barefoot. I would climb trees at the park. I would do different things like this. And it wasn't ever like a workout, like, all right, I'm going to do 5 sets of 10 reps of tree climbs. And then it wasn't like that. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like there was no pain, no gain or anything. Like, it was just like, let's kind of play and explore and have some fun. I literally felt like I was in the best shape of my life. And I love that you're bringing this up. I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, and you're doing exactly what your body craves. If you think again back to ancestral times, if we're going after food, they were climbing the trees. They were, running through the grass, chasing the animals. They were interacting with their nature. They weren't sitting there lifting rocks. That is our feeble attempt to bring back the stresses of the caveman life. I'll admit, the caveman life, they say it was short and brutish and ugly, but it wasn't. They found basically if you lived, looking at the skeletons, if you lived to pass about the age of 12, it was very likely that you made it into your 60s and 70s.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, there were a lot of, people that died earlier than that. But for the most part, they actually, once they got through the dangers of childhood, they were set. They were doing all right.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
To a point.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always danger. And I'm sure there were, I don't know if I want to quantify it like this, but I'm sure there were more, acute dangers in those days than maybe there are now.
Most definitely.
More animals that would maybe try to eat you, and different other considerations like food scarcity and things like that. But they definitely didn't have the modern attacks, all the, diabetes, heart attacks, different things like that.
Yeah, the lifestyle, issues, the cardiovascular disease, the obesity, that sort of thing. No, they didn't. You brought up the food scarcity, and that actually was one of the aspects of caveman life. If you look at evolutionary thing, that we evolved certain physiological adaptations to this. So we're going to go back. So behind me is West Texas. And the Native Americans here, it's a very low calorie ecosystem. And so to master living here, they had to develop some skills and some techniques. One of them was called second harvest, where after, say, you eat the fruit of the prickly pear, there's a lot of little seeds in it. Those seeds are calories and nutrition and protein, things you need. And so after eating the fruit, the next day they would go out and defecate and then give it, like a week or so to dry, and then go through their feces, pull out the seeds, and then eat them again to try and get more nutrients from them.
Wow.
But
you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. But humans, for a long time, the limiting factor for us was calories. And so one of the things we evolved is if we encountered some sort of high calorie density food, it would actually trigger basically nerve endings and signals from our gut saying, whatever this thing you're eating right now, eat as much of it as you can because you may not get it again for a long time. Which, when it involved, chasing down a bear, that was one thing. But now when you can walk into McDonald's and get, 4,000 calories for $8, and your body is saying, yes, yes, do this, eat this, we end up with all these modern lifestyle issues.
Becomes almost like a primitive, like almost an addictive quality where it's like you need more of that, whatever that thing was, that 2,000 calorie Big Mac, go do it again tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, because your brain is releasing dopamine because it's saying, yes, I need you to do this. Whatever you're doing right now, that's a good thing for me. It was 30,000 years ago, not so much now.
Not so much now when we have an overabundance of food in general, at least in the West. So it's interesting that, fasting has become such a fad now. And I hate to use that word fad because like what you're saying, we were like very low calorie thousands of years ago for the most part. And then, like you said, you kill a buffalo or something and then we would have like a big feast. But for the most part, it was very scarce, right? We were just looking for food, climbing trees, walking long distances, things like that, right?
Yeah. And so the intermittent fasting, the scientific research behind it is really positive because that, again, goes back to our feast and famine sort of way of evolving. And so if you just fast, go on a diet, you just deprive yourself of calories for weeks at a time, your whole metabolic system shifts down and you just stop using as much energy. You're lethargic and stuff like that. Whereas if you go like 2-3 days and then suddenly you eat and it's like, oh, okay. And so it's almost like your metabolic or your metabolism doesn't know what to do. Do I shut down? Do I be ready to eat? And it decides, well, let's just keep going as natural because, I'm just going to deal with the environment.
Right. And it becomes very adaptive, right? It becomes like you're not going to get stuck on one or the other. And a similar thing has been said that as far as whether you're burning fat or burning sugar, it's like, as far as keeping blood sugar consistent, if you're always sort of throwing curveballs at your body doesn't quite know what's happening. It's always going to be ready to go left, right, up, down, regardless of what you're doing, right? It's adaptive.
Exactly. Yeah. It's ready to play dodgeball. It's going, okay, where's it coming from?
Nice.
What is my fuel today going to be? I'm ready for it.
Nice. So in addition to, I think we're getting some good practical strategies, doing the grounding, like barefoot walking in the park, walking over roots and maybe sand and dirt and, grass. One, I would say, how frequently does somebody want to do that? And then I'll let you answer that and then I'll ask my next question.
Okay. Yeah. So again, looking at the scientific research on this stuff, what they really recommend is about 40 minutes 3 times a week as a bare minimum. You will see a definite benefit from 40 minutes 3 times a week. So it doesn't take a lot.
Yeah, that could be especially for somebody who maybe they're already walking, but they're walking in shoes on the sidewalk. Maybe just take off your shoes and instead of walking around the park on the sidewalk, you're walking through the middle of the park, just back and forth,
right,
on the soccer field or whatever. Yeah, the hills. Yeah. Okay, so that's great. As far as like food, so this feast or famine, what do you think, as far as recommendations for people to implement, like step 1 in their practical life, what would you recommend for people?
Oh, okay. Step 1. One of the things you have to remember is humans are omnivores, and so to put things in perspective, the next closest thing to our digestive system is the pig. And what this means is we are designed to eat damn near anything. And in doing so, mainly natural foods. I am a nose to tail, meat eater. I'm not a vegan or anything like that. I realize we evolved to not waste anything, especially when it comes to the animal nutrient dense, the livers, the eyeballs, the intestines. Just to go sideways for a second, there's a really fascinating thing that occurs to people that are shipwrecked or lost in sea in life rafts that have fishing gear. And this has occurred over and over and over again. They will be fishing for the fish. They'll catch a fish, and the first 2 to 3 weeks while they're lost in sea in this lifeboat, they're just eating the meat of the fish, like sushi. And then about week 4 to week 6, it's like a switch gets flipped in their brain. And suddenly they're looking at the fish and going, oh man, I want to eat those eyeballs. And the guts of that fish, I want those guts. The brain knows that that's where the nutrients are. That's where you're going to get stuff you need. I don't know if it's olfactory or what that triggers it, but the brain knows.
Wow.
You may think that bag of Doritos is going, oh yeah, that's what I want. But that's those nerve endings in your gut that are looking for the calories going.
Right.
So the one of the things I really recommend is try and include, if you want to do this, try and include liver in your diet. Start with liver and onions, add that. Then from there on, go to Cajun food, because Cajuns use every part of the animal, some of the sausages and so forth. But try and expand away from the modern diet and try and find ways you can get, more original diet in your food. One of the things I do is I teach foraging classes. I take people out and I teach them, these are the plants that our ancestors used as food and medicine. And so that sort of thing really comes into play. And
That's
then
cool.
One of the things that they get up from that, so the gut flora. We have a bunch of bacteria in our gut, and it's changed over the centuries. And the modern diet does not feed our gut bacteria very well. And so as the good gut bacteria kind of decreases, the bad gut bacteria starts to grow, and you get all sorts of digestive issues. When you are harvesting things from the wild, you are getting the soil-based organisms and the sort of lactobacillus and the sort of things that help our body. And you're replenishing the good stuff. Because the other alternative, unfortunately, is what they call a fecal transplant, where they take fecal matter from a healthy person and reload you with that. It's much better to go out and just gather wild food. No,
that doesn't sound fun at all.
I can't imagine.
It sounds like these sound like very simple, very easy things to do. Liver is available at a lot of markets near whoever's watching this.
Gizzards.
Yeah. Chicken feet, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and the cartilage in the collagen in that. But then this hunt. If you're the person who is harvesting the game, then you have direct access to the liver and the heart and all that. You can buy beef hearts in places. You can buy beef tongue in places. But getting some of the other organ meats, the kidneys. If you go over to Britain, to England, kidney pie. Kidneys are a very popular dish over there.
Yeah.
Very healthy, very nutrients. And they supply a lot of the building blocks your body evolved to need to stay healthy. Let's talk about vitamin C for a second if we have time.
Love to, yeah.
Okay, so vitamin C, we know we need vitamin C. You may remember from health class, your body does not make vitamin C, it cannot store vitamin C, but you need it every day. Vitamin C is a very reactive molecule. It's used in all sorts of biochemical processes in the body. Why don't we make it? If you look at animals, we are one of the few animals that don't make our own vitamin C. Even a number of our nearest primate relatives, they make vitamin C. It's one of these unique traits in humans that we don't make vitamin C. Vitamin C is readily abundant in many plants. In plants, it actually works as a sunblock to help protect the suns during the middle heat, bright sun of the day, so it doesn't like fry out the plants. But it's very readily available from our surroundings. So if you think about something, nature is lazy. Nature is efficient. We don't say lazy. If it doesn't have to make something, it won't make it. Right. Or it will let it up, like the appendix. We no longer use the appendix, so it's become a vestigial organ. Right. The belief was that there were some mutant humans that could not make their vitamin C, but they could get it from their environment. So the body said, you know what? I can use this energy that would normally go into making vitamin C into doing something else. And this was actually beneficial for the human because they were getting plenty of vitamin C from the wild foods around them. and they could do other things than with that energy that would have been used to make it. And it
So
became a mutation.
it was actually an evolutionary process to not make our own vitamin C.
Yeah, so it was a mutation where they didn't have it, and it was a beneficial mutation because
Right.
it's so easy to get. Now, the question is, like, if you look at the USDA, they say, you need this much vitamin A, this much vitamin, all these sort of things.
Yeah.
Does anyone truly believe if that's just what they took, they would be healthy? No, because they know there are other things we haven't figured out yet that is in our foods that we need. These vitamins and minerals, those are for, if you don't have those, you very, very quickly start showing health issues. But all these other nutrients and organ meats and things in the organ meats and in the wild plants, our body still needs those. That's how we evolve. We need these things. We don't know what they are, but we know we need them. And if the food is mainly a combination of corn and salt, it's probably not going to give us what we need for the long-term health.
A butter truck just drove by. I love this. I think this is so perfect.
See, I'm a big fan of butter. Butter is great. Butter is a natural fat. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I just think this is a perfect juxtaposition. It's like modern life behind me, and then you got the wild behind you. This is great.
Yep.
Okay, cool. This is awesome. I feel like this is giving people some very practical strategies. I had a question about your foraging class. So you said you're in Texas?
Yes. I'm based in Houston, but I teach all over Texas.
Okay, so you take people out to that environment, which, like you said, is a low-calorie environment. You teach them, like, hey, these are plants that our ancestors lived on, and you can eat this part of the plant. Like, talk about that a little bit, about those classes. That's really interesting.
Okay, so yeah, usually I've been doing that professionally since 2008, and just for friends and family before that. But yeah, usually the walkabouts are about 4 hours. It'll be hosted by a nature preserve or a park. Later next week or 2 weeks from now, I got to check my calendar. I'm doing from the big science museum here in Houston. But we meet up. It'll usually be a small class of 14 to 16 people, because bigger than that, it gets kind of hard to wrangle.
Yeah.
And we start exploring the ecosystem and saying, okay, this is food, this is medicine, and not only what it is, but how to properly identify it, including how to tell the difference between mimics, because you don't want to do the mimics. The science behind it, the particular chemicals that may be present that work medicinally, how I incorporate it as food and medicine for myself and my family, and also preservative tips, and even interesting historical significance of certain plants. So it's a lot of information.
Nice.
We always run out of time before we run out of plants.
Of course, yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, this is really interesting stuff. I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit bigger picture as far as, like, what drove you originally to do all this? Like, you said you've been doing these nature hikes since 2008. I imagine you've been doing other things since even before that. What's your driving force that keeps you going with all this?
Okay, so it really goes back to my parents and my grandparents. They were children of the Great Depression, my parents. And so one of the ways they got through that terrible time was through the knowledge of wild edible plants. Back in their generation, the previous generations, it was still fairly common knowledge. And so every day, my mom or my dad would take me and my brothers, so just boys in the family, and we'd go out in the woods, and they would say, "Oh yeah, Grandma would use this for this, and we'd use that for that," and we'd do that sort of thing with it. And then my dad is also a huge outdoorsman. He's 88 now. He's very excited. Deer hunting season is coming up, because this could be the last deer season I ever get to experience, which he's been saying for the last 20 years. And he's a healthy horse of a man, because he's out in the wild every day. Same with my mom, and so I had that wild upbringing. At the same time, I knew I wanted to be a scientist. You were pretty much born being a scientist, and I knew from kindergarten on that I was going to be a scientist. And as I learned about the plants and everything, I ended up focusing on chemistry. I wanted to be a medicinal chemistry, and I focused on natural products and the compounds that plants make. And that has, like I said, led me down a rabbit hole where as I learned about the chemistry of the plants, well, then I started looking, how were they used? How were they used as food and medicine? And that, ended up making me a published author on it, books and magazine articles and all this sort of thing. There was a kind of a side branch there. When I moved to Texas in '97, there wasn't much in the way on the internet at the time yet about where to go hiking and camping in Texas. So I set up a blog devoted to each weekend I'd go out somewhere and then I'd write up my report of it. And what really became popular was when I started writing about the edible and medicinal plants I was finding. That's where I got the nickname Merriweather, because my hiking buddy, it drove him nuts because whenever we were out, I was constantly taking pictures of plants and identifying plants and had this stack of books with me. And he's like, come on, Merriweather, we still got 8 miles to go today. And so I started, people started contacting me and saying, hey, we're going camping next weekend. Would you come with and teach us about the edible and medicinal plants? So, yeah, sure. I don't know you, but if you're going to the woods, I trust you to be a good person. And then in 2008, the Houston Arboretum contacted me and said, hey, we hear you teach wild edible plants. Would you do that for us? And it's like, yeah, okay. And from there, it just exploded. I'm deeply tied in with Texas Parks and Wildlife, the Department of Natural Resources, NASA. I've done consulting work with NASA on trying to grow wild plants in space rather than the domesticated plants, because they're having all sorts of problems with domesticated plants. Podcast, I get to meet you. It's awesome. So yeah, it's just, I know I'm doing the right thing because it's working out.
And then of course, people are interested. You're in your wheelhouse. You're enjoying yourself, and you're, I'm sure, learning even more every day, getting to live the life that you like living.
Yeah,
awesome.
And now, especially, with the creation of Medicine Man Plant Co. and actually finally bringing these, ready-made herbal supplements to people.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. We'll kind of close up with that.
Okay.
Your website. How do people find you, and what is your medicinal line about? Yeah,
so medicinemanplantco.com is my website, and that's where you can find my list of upcoming classes and a whole bunch of information, a lot of ancestral health, lifestyle tips, and all that sort of thing. The hook for all this is my line of herbal supplements, ancient plants for modern issues. Being a scientist, I need to know there's scientific backing behind what I am giving to people. So everything in these has been confirmed scientifically that yes. So right now we have 8 products. We have the immune pill, which is designed to help the immune system, strengthen the immune system. The liver pill, the brain pill, the serenity pill, the libido pill, the uric acid pill, the blood pressure pill, and I'm forgetting one. Brain, the libido. No, we'll go with those. The stonebreaker pill. Yes.
Stonebreaker.
And so,
what's that? Is that muscle strength?
Think lower in the body. Kidney stones,
the stonebreaker.
Yeah. Okay. So these are designed. I take 3 to 5 plants from different parts of the world that work on different mechanisms that have been shown to help that particular issue. The reason for taking plants from different parts of the world is because we have, for a long time, we were separate, and people evolved. Like if you look at the people still in Greece, the Greece diet works really great if you're Grecian. It works less good if you're not Grecian. But if you have some Greek in you, it helps some. So we have, over the last 600 years, 1,000 years, we've started to re-blend our genes. And so really to find something that helps everyone, I had to take from different parts of the world at doses that have been scientifically shown to, I aim for the average adult of 165 pounds. And then you can kind of go up or down from there. They don't have any artificial fillers. Sometimes with these herbs, they need a processing aid. A number of companies will use something like magnesium stearate or some other synthetic compound. I use a rice bran that we found that works the same way. Some of them need a preservative because they have like flaxseed in them. And if that would go rancid, we found a confirmed antioxidant or preservative extracted from rosemary. that protects it just as good as the BHT synthetic sort of stuff. So I'm trying to give
Wow.
you just what you would have gotten 14,000 years ago from a very
Right.
well-connected medicine man, and
Right.
trying
Wow. This
to
is
take care of
awesome.
you that way. And they're all trying to help deal with the lifestyle issues that have arisen because we're no longer acting the way we evolved. And my true goal is for these just to be a crutch to get you back to a state where you can start incorporating these different, climbing trees, walking barefoot, doing all this sort of stuff, cold showers. People don't realize the human race has been through 12 ice ages. We are more adapted for
Wow.
cold than for hot.
Okay.
And so there are actually some really interesting scientific benefits of just cold showers, including increasing the libido. That whole thing about taking a cold shower to kind of chill out actually works, completely opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
I can attest to this. A couple years ago, I started incorporating cold showers, and it was not comfortable at all. So
no.
what I tell my clients is the way to get into it slowly is take your regular hot shower and maybe even add a little extra heat just to get your core temperature heated, then go cold, and then 5 seconds go hot again, and then go cold and go hot, and your body will tiptoe into the cold, and that might take you several weeks, but pretty soon you'll sort of get used to it. Your
Mhm.
body will start to crave it. However you get into it, I
Yep.
agree with you 100%. There are definite benefits, and it's a lot easier to do it in the summertime when it's just hot out and you're like, man, a cold shower would feel real nice right now, right?
Yep. And I'll tell you, growing up in Minnesota, they have the polar bears plunge on New Year's and the saunas
Right,
where you get in the
right.
sauna, then you go run and roll, and you roll in the snow and run back in the sauna. But yeah, the effects on metabolism, inflammation, mental acuity, all that stuff is really, really good.
Yeah, yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
all
Cool.
these things.
Yeah, that's great, man. You've given us some great practical tips. The walking barefoot, climbing trees, taking cold showers, and
Eating,
eating in a
yeah.
way that our ancestors ate. Checking out your website to get some herbs. Really, this is great. I appreciate all this information. Any closing remarks? Anything you want to leave the audience with, or?
Yeah, so just be wild. Get out. The health benefits, from everything from attention deficit disorder to heart disease have all been scientifically shown to be improved by just getting out in the wild, letting your brain soak in all the information that it's not getting if you're just sitting there on a couch, and walking and using the body the way we evolved. Because we are prehistoric badasses, but we need to do some of that stuff that made us a badass to retain our badassery.
I
I
agree. Yep,
guess.
yep. Everyone who's alive right now is the winner of the genetic lottery. We beat all the other sperm, and we
Hmm.
are here. There's no reason why we should be deteriorating like so many people are. So
Exactly.
absolutely. Well, if people will take your advice and start following some of these protocol, I think we can get out of this. So this is great, Meriwether. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you joining me today.
Thank
Health
you.
in the Real World podcast. One more time, real quick. What's your website?
Okay, so medicinemanplantco.com is the center of everything. And from there you
Awesome.
can get to, everything else, the social media, the YouTube channel,
Nice.
all that sort of stuff, and the primitive skills, ancestral type stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Meriwether, thank you so much for joining me again. Have a wonderful day. Hopefully we'll be in touch. I'll talk to you again soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Health in the Real World show. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Visit mycorebalance.com to learn more.